I just want to acknowledge some of our special guests who are here with us today. Everyone, of course, is special in the room today, but just want to acknowledge some of our colleagues. First and foremost, very proud to have with us my partner, great friend, great colleague, and really doing amazing things, Nassau County Executive Laura Curran. I've lived in Suffolk County most of my life, but not until I became county executive did I really realize how big Suffolk County was. Laura's not even the county executive, and she's getting to learn that now. So thank you for coming all the way out, Laura.
It's much bigger than mine.
Yeah, yes, it is a little bigger. We also are very proud to welcome the Vice Chairman of the Shinnecock Indian Nation and the Council of Trustees, Randy King. Thank you very much, Randy. We are in his beautiful town, and I want to thank him, my former colleague on the Suffolk County Legislature, and now the former supervisor of East Hampton, now the Southampton Town Supervisor, Jay Schneiderman. We're also joined by another great East End supervisor from the town of Riverhead, Supervisor Laura Jen Smith. Thank you. And some of our former colleagues, I just want to recognize our former congressman from the town of Southampton, and his family's been here since the 1600s. And we certainly do miss him in Washington, Congressman Tim Bishop. It's gotten even crazier since you left, Tim. If we could believe that. And two of my former colleagues in the Suffolk County Legislature, our former presiding officer and now regional park director, Wayne Horsley. Former county legislator and Senator Brian Foley. And our former county legislator, Lou DeMauro. We also want to welcome and thank her for her leadership, the Executive Director of the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Adrian Esposito. From the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council, Captain Tony Delernia. Tony. New York State DEC Commissioner and doing a tremendous job, Basil Sagos. Basil, great to see you. Thank you. The Director of the Canal Corporation, Brian Stratton. Hi, Brian. And really the reason we got such a great crowd in here, we have another Cuomo with us. Michaela Kennedy Cuomo is with us. That's the real reason we're here. Let's face it. And we also want to welcome all of our local leaders who are here, elected officials, anglers, environmental advocates. Thank you, everyone, for being here for this incredibly important announcement. And we're going to start off the program, of course, by welcoming our great friend, our great governor, Andrew Cuomo. And then we're going to be hearing from Adrian Esposito, and then from the captain, closing out our program. So it gives me great pleasure, of course, to introduce a great friend, a great advocate, and a great leader for Long Island and for everyone across New York State. I can tell you that from day one, since I've been county executive, Governor Cuomo's leadership, his strength, his appearance here in Suffolk County time and time again to lead has been incredible. Whether you're talking about the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, all the incredible extreme weather events that we have faced, he is always out in front. He's always leading, always there to provide state resources to make sure we have what we need to move forward. And it's actually an incredible thing to watch and greatly appreciated by all of us in Suffolk County on Long Island. But the governor also very much recognizes what we have here throughout New York, but on Long Island in particular, the natural resources we have here are absolutely incredible. And it is a key component of our quality of life, our economy, our tourism economy here. It's everything to us. And he has been a tremendous leader in ensuring clean water here, fighting to protect our water quality and reversing the decades of decline, protecting our shoreline, revitalizing our state parks everywhere. It has really meant a lot to us on Long Island. So we are incredibly grateful to Governor Cuomo for his leadership and his continuous support for Suffolk County and for all of Long Island. And with that, we are really pleased that he is here once again for another significant announcement and event, and again demonstrating the leadership he has shown throughout his time as governor. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me now in welcoming the 56th governor of the great state of New York, our great friend, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Another tough day at work, huh? What a beautiful setting, what a beautiful place. It really is my personal pleasure, and I'm so excited about what we're doing today. First, to County Executive Steve Bellone, your county executive. I've known Steve a long time, but I am so excited about him because he is a get-it-done kind of person. He is a change agent. He's not the type of government official who runs away from a challenge. He actually runs towards a challenge. And that is a rare quality today, especially in this political environment where whatever you do is difficult and is controversial. He's here to make a difference, and he is making a difference. Let's give him a round of applause. And he has now a great partner in the Nassau County Executive, Laura Curran. I am so excited about what she's going to do. She is from the same mold. She is here to make change. She is not your typical politician. She wants to get things done. She wants to make the Nassau County a better county. And the partnership between the two of them is also very exciting. I'm old enough to remember when Nassau and Suffolk thought they were two separate countries, and you needed a passport to go from Nassau to Suffolk, right? That's not the way the world works. It is Long Island. It is the same body of water. It is, they are inextricably linked to each other. And if we're going to make Long Island a better place, it's going to be because Nassau and Suffolk work together. And we all work together to make Long Island a better place. And that is exactly what Laura Curran and Steve Bellone are all about. So I'm excited, and thank you for being here, Laura. And Steve did all the acknowledgments, but Randy King, whose people have been here and taken care of this land before any of us were here. And they really taught us the sanctity of Mother Nature. There's a great Native American proverb that says, we didn't inherit the land from our parents. We're borrowing it from our children. And that really says it all. And that has always been the mentality of the Shinnecocks, that we are here as stewards for the public trust, and we are here to safeguard the land. And the Shinnecocks have done that magnificently well. So thank you very much for being here. We have Adrian Esposito, who is representing all the advocacy communities, and there's many of them on Long Island. The high school students who are now getting engaged, I'm glad to see that. That's what's going to bring change. Change comes when people demand change. We have this old paradigm that, well, the elected leaders, they're going to bring change. No, more and more change comes because the people generate the energy for change. And that's what we're seeing on the environment. So Adrian, thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here and what you do. We have Captain Tony DeLernier, who sits on the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council for us. which is very important. That decides fishing quotas and the fishing quotas among the mid-Atlantic states. New York has been at the short end of the rod, I guess you could say, Captain, for many years, and Tony DeLernia has been a great advocate for New York, and he's really stepped up, and we're doing much better with Tony DeLernia. Thank you, Captain. We have Rockville Center Fran Murray, who's here, so thank you very much for coming, Fran. Lou Damara and Jay Schneiderman, we're going to be spending a lot of time together, so good to be with you. Give them a round of applause. We have the DEC team headed by Basil Sagos. Pleasure to be with Commissioner Basil Sagos. We also have DOT and Brian Stratton from the Canal Corporation, and everybody scrambled, let's say, to get this project going and get it going quickly. Somebody demanded that it happen fast. I think it was the Lieutenant Governor. But, and they all scrambled and they got it together, and this is really a government-wide success story. And we want to thank Kelly for her leadership to make it all happen. Let's give them a round of applause. County Executive acknowledged my daughter, Michaela. I'm glad he did. This is my youngest, Michaela. She's at Brown University, and she's spending some time with her father. Truth is, we have a little father-daughter tension this morning that we're trying to work through. I am well, it's the truth. I don't want to hide anything. If you feel a little estrangement, I am a protective father. I admit that. I'm hyper cautious. I admit that. Michaela has a new young man who she just started to see, and that's good, and I applaud that, and that's natural. I do not believe that I am beyond my rights in asking for a cursory background check of the boardroom. And I believe, look, I believe this. If the boy doesn't want to be fingerprinted, something is wrong. Why would you be unwilling to be fingerprinted unless you have something to hide?
That's right, Governor.
That's right, right? Tell the truth. Who's with me on this? Overwhelming support. Overwhelming. Let them come to the house, say hello, sit down, get to know you, take your fingerprints. They come back clean. There's no issue.
DNA sample.
DNA. See? I didn't ask for a DNA sample. That's on the second date. But Michaela Kennedy Cuomo, who I'm very proud of. See? Everybody. Everybody agrees with me. Today is exciting because we are doing something today, and we're facing the reality. We know full well that this state, this nation, is facing an environmental crisis across the board. We're facing an environmental crisis when it comes to our water across the board. Oceans, bays, rivers, our drinking water. And it's only getting worse. And I don't believe in living in the state of denial. I believe that we live in the state of New York, and the state of New York has always prospered by stepping up and acknowledging the challenge. It is only getting worse. The pollution in the oceans, the fisheries in the oceans, what we're seeing in our rivers, what we're seeing in our drinking water is frightening. You see it here on Long Island in a more pronounced way, given the geography and given your aquifer. Everything goes right through that sand, and it sits in the aquifer. We're dealing with it statewide, where you now have a combination of chemicals that are winding up in our drinking water that nobody could have imagined. You know, We had this old 50s mentality, 60s mentality that, well, you flush it and you put it down the sewer and it's gone. You know, nothing is gone. All those chemicals just settle. And then all the chemicals combine. And we don't even know what we're dealing with. We've had drinking water issues in upstate New York that Basil and Commissioner Zucker from the Health Department have been working on, where the federal EPA hasn't even figured out all the chemicals that we should test for and what are safe levels of contamination of certain chemicals. So we have our work cut out for us. And our job here in the state of New York is actually to start to do something about it. And let's lead by example, and let's lead by action. And that's what we've been doing. We have the most aggressive environmental policy of any state in the United States of America, from one end to the other, and I am proud of it. It's actually a critical issue on Long Island because so much of Long Island is about the water, right? That's what makes Long Island Long Island. That's why people are here. Either it's the sound, or it's the ocean, or it's the rivers, but that was the attraction, was the environment, the water. That's what made Long Island. That's what made Sag Harbor, the access through the waterways. And we're seeing it and we're feeling it, and we are aggressively addressing it on Long Island. We have the largest state Superfund cleanup site in the United States of America. We just did $2.5 billion for clean water infrastructure. That Steve Ballone is exactly right. You know, it's not glamorous stuff, but if you don't have a sewer system that is working and we keep dumping nitrogen into the water from septic, we know what is going to happen. And it's an investment, and it's an investment that the county has stepped up and made in Suffolk. But if we don't do it, we know that we're just going to continue to see more nitrogen and more pollution in our bodies of water. We have the largest investment in the Environmental Protection Fund in history, $300 million. We're stepping up and taking on issues that have just been left there forever. The Grumman plume, which is the water that has been tainted from the chemical discharge from Northrop Grumman. We've talked about it for 30 years. And we've been talking about how that plume is moving across Long Island and is headed for the ocean and is going to affect drinking water. And it's a big problem and it's a hard problem, but just denying it and talking about it is not going to settle it. And we are now putting in the equipment today, Commissioner Sagos, thank you very much, that is actually going to clean up the Grumman plume where it is to stop it from moving further and stop it from getting to water wells on the South Shore. We have a 10-year ocean action cleanup plan that we're doing. And we're doing something that's very exciting and creative out of the box. 200 million shellfish, clams, and oysters are being replanted. Thank you, Stony Brook. Clams and oysters were the original filtration equipment, right? That was the device that Mother Nature used. The oyster reefs that made New York City, New York City. The clams, the oysters that were on Long Island, that was the filtration mechanism. And that has been dissipated. We're restoring that with the most aggressive restoration program done anywhere in the country. So we are working on every level all across the board, and I'm proud of it. We have done focused on Long Island because on Long Island it's not just an environmental issue, it's an economic issue. About 15% of Long Island's GDP comes from commercial recreational fishing. That does not account for the recreational tourism aspect of people who are coming out to beaches and then wind up going to the wine trails, etc. So on Long Island, it's not just an environmental issue, it's also an economic issue. And we've taken some really large steps that we're excited about. The Bay Park wastewater treatment plant in Nassau County. For many years, Nassau County is not that well represented, and they are a little slow to the applause. Bay Park, Fran, let's hear a more hearty applause for the neighborhood. But we had the Bay Park wastewater treatment facility that dumped right into Reynolds Channel on the South Shore. And without getting overly graphic, you know, a wastewater treatment plant works better or worse depending on the conditions, and you have a heavy rainfall that overcomes the wastewater treatment plant. It's not really doing its job. And it was dumping right into Reynolds Channel. Reynolds Channel is then the whole network of waterways along the South Shore. And this was polluting the water and really in some conditions making the water unusable for decades. What we said we're going to do is connect the Bay Park plant over to the Cedar Creek plant and then run a pipe out into the ocean, literally miles, to do a discharge to get all of that away from the shoreline and the inland waters. It's a $354 million project, but it is a necessary investment. It's going to make Long Island and the South Shore cleaner and better than it has ever been, and I want to thank the county executive for her partnership. And today, we are implementing something that is out of the box, which is the creation of artificial reef sites. Why would we do artificial reef sites? The question is really, why haven't we done them before? Many states have been more aggressive on the artificial reef sites. You create an artificial reef, what you're doing is creating a habitat for the fishery. It increases fishing for recreational fishermen, commercial fishermen. It opens up a whole new industry of diving and the tourism-related activities that go with diving. Off the coast of Florida, they sunk a large ex-military surplus battleship, and it has driven an economy for several towns, people just coming to dive to see the battleship. We are going to do it on 12 sites. It is good for the environment. It creates habitat for the fisheries. The materials that are placed are all inspected and cleaned and surveyed before they are placed. And it's going to change, literally, the shoreline around Long Island, increase the ecosystem all around Long Island, and 12 sites, so it'll be making a significant difference. I had wanted them to come up with creative names for the sites, like Shipwreck Reef or Pirate Reef or something. I asked DEC to do that. They obviously didn't. But creativity is something we're working on at DEC. We have a creativity workshop that we're going through and counseling. I'm going to call the Shinnecock Reef the Old Reliable Reef, named for the ship that we are sinking in the Shinnecock Reef. But we're doing 12 all around Long Island. We have 2 in the Sound, as you can see. You'll hear more about this on the boat from the DEC commissioner, but they have a patch reef design where there's some areas, almost looks like a checkerboard, some areas with material, then there's a sandy area, then there's another area with materials, and this has been shown to be the best, most effective reef design mechanism. We're going to do 6 sites, and we're going to do 6 sites this year. So we have it on full speed ahead, hence the comment before about the agencies scrambling to get this done quickly, which I know was their pleasure, despite the pressure from the Lieutenant Governor. And we're going to start with the Shinnecock Reef. It's 35 acres, 85 feet at its depth. It's 2 miles from the inlet itself. As you know, the inlet was created by Mother Nature in 1938 by a hurricane that created the inlet initially. It's a very important inlet because it goes up through Shinnecock Bay to the canal, and through the Shinnecock Canal, you get into the Long Island Sound, and it's a major access point on Long Island. It's one of the only places you can get from the ocean up into the Sound, through the inlet, through the bay, through the Shinnecock Canal. We are going to be dumping, placing gently, parts of the old Tappan Bridge. I don't want anyone to feel bad about the Tappan Bridge. It has had a very good life. It served us very well. It served us very well for more years than it was supposed to. It goes across the Hudson River. It was built as a temporary bridge, and then it was supposed to be replaced. And because it's past its useful life. They talked about replacing the Tappan Bridge literally for over 20 years. And they traumatized generations when they talked about the Tappan Bridge, because they would say, you know, the Tappan Bridge is now dangerous, and the roadway was crumbling, and they would put these large metal plates on the bridge covering holes on the roadway. And you would watch the car in front of you go over the metal plate, and the metal plate would jump just a little bit, and you'd see a little bit of daylight. And then you would think, it's my luck. I'm going over this plate, and I'm going right down. Unbuckle the seatbelt. How do you get out? But for 20 years, they talked about doing it. And it never happened. Why? Because it was complicated. It was a bridge across the Hudson, and there was a lot of sensitivity, and Westchester's on one side, and they wanted a blue bridge, and Rockland's on the other side, and they wanted a red bridge. And so 20 years, it never happened. We said, we're going to get it done. The old Tappan Zee's coming down. We're building a new bridge. And you wonder, what is the afterlife, right? The big question, what happens when we leave? Well, if you were a bridge, the afterlife is you still serve a purpose. You don't go up, you go down. And we're going to use part of the Tappan Zee to actually form the reef. And it's coincidental that the Tappan Zee is coming down at this time. And you'll see, those of you who come out will see, part of the Tappan Zee is going to be at this reef and other reef sites. We're also, the Canal Corporation is here. They run the Erie Canal. There are out-of-commission vessels, including a 74-foot tugboat and a 40-foot tender. I like these as attractions for divers who would want to come and look at the old boats. I believe it's called, Brian, Old Reliable. What was the name of the? The Reliable. The Reliable. No old, just The Reliable. But it is old. All right, so old is really used as an adjective, but the Reliable. I'm going to call this the Reliable Reef as opposed to the Shinnecock Reef. But that could be a great diving site for divers who want to go down. There'll also be a 110-foot barge that is going to be sunk at this location. And then a total of other materials from the bridge, from other construction projects around the state. But it's going to be a total of over 1 million tons. And this is material that, in many cases, we would have had to pay to dispose of if we didn't. But it's all cleaned, it's all safe, and it's going to be placed. Another topic I would want to raise, while we're talking about the good things we're doing, We also have to make sure we don't do any more damage in the meantime. The federal government has proposed offshore drilling all along the eastern seaboard, including the state of New York. Now, this federal government has proposed many things that make me question their view of the world and basic rationality. This is a really, really terrible, terrible idea. I mean, offshore drilling. And why we would want to do more drilling for oil, why would we want to do it off our shoreline? First of all, everything is about moving away from fossil fuels. We have the most aggressive renewable standard in the United States of America. Why you want to do more? Why you would want to do it close to a shoreline where, God forbid, there's an accident, you could devastate the entire region. It means you learned nothing from the BP oil spill. All this rhetoric about we have it down to a science, we have it down to a science. Baloney. We saw what has happened. There is no science. A pipe breaks on the ocean floor. Nobody knows what to do for weeks. And we wind up poisoning an entire regional environment. So this proposal, I object to strongly. I would urge you to make your voice heard. It is happening now in Washington. The Department of Interior is going to make the decision, Secretary Zinke. We have proposed a bill in the state that says even if you do it, because they are the federal government, we don't have the ability to tell the federal government what they can do. It's a little thing called the Constitution that stops that. But we can pass a state law that A, prohibits any exploration in state waters, B, that says even if you drill in offshore water, you can have no infrastructure that connects with the shoreline of New York. So no pipeline, etc. And number 3, we will not allow the transport in New York of any crude oil that comes from those federal waters. God forbid there was an oil spill. If you have a strong tide, the way our tides work in the metropolitan area, that spill would be not just a South Shore spill. That would go into Manhattan, up the East River, through the Sound, and the Hudson River is tidal. It would bring that spill up the Hudson River for tens of miles. I mean, you're talking about affecting the entire New York City metropolitan region and New Jersey shoreline, all the ports, etc. We're doing everything we can to stop them from allowing the permits. We have a website. I was talking to the high school students before. This is still a democracy. We have Congress people. We have senators. Make your voice heard. I don't know how you can be a federal representative from Long Island and support this. It makes absolutely no sense. But again, it's imminent, and we need your voice heard. New York's legacy. New York's legacy is to lead by action, so let's do it. And this is my last point, and it's a harangue that I do with my kids and I do with newly elected officials. I've done with Steve. I'm going to find the appropriate time with Laura Curran. It's a very interesting and frightening time that we live in today. We have probably the most significant issues that we have had to deal with maybe in modern political history. If you take out war, we probably have the most pressing agenda that we face. You look at climate change, what's happening to the environment. You look at our crumbling infrastructure. You look at what's happening societally with the demand for societal change, the women's movement, the youth movement, the Me Too movement. You look at how far behind we are other countries in redeveloping our infrastructure and transportation system. You look at how much work we have to do to transform into a clean tech economy and actually make a renewable energy economy a reality. All of these things, we know what needs to be done. We are in a state of paralysis. It's part political gridlock, it's part societal paralysis, where we're just not doing it. We just are not doing it. What made New York, New York, was we never took no for an answer. We were about daring and vision and risk, and they said we couldn't do it, and we said we can, and they said you can't build a building that tall, and we said you watch us, and they said you can't build a tunnel that long, and we said you watch us. Everything we did defied the odds. We're now at a place where we're afraid to take on big actions. Long Island Railroad. Long Island Railroad built in 1834 from New York City to Montauk Point. Why do they build the Long Island Railroad? Now think of it, 1834, New York City to Montauk Point. We're going to build a railroad the entire distance, 150 miles, whatever it is. Why take on such an ambitious project? Because their plan was to have a ferry in Montauk that could take you to Boston. So they build this railroad all the way out to Montauk, just so you can catch a ferry, so you can get to Boston faster. That immense project just to get to Boston. That's who they were. Turns out the ferry service to Boston goes bust, but they wind up with the Long Island Railroad, which then makes Long Island, because now there was access to come out to Long Island. Since they built the railroad, we were never able to modernize it. We were never able to add a second track and a third track. Why? Well, it was too hard, and this NIMBY, and this, and that. And then the Long Island Railroad just became unusable. Too much volume. When they say on those radio reports in the morning, there's a delay on the track at the Long Island Railroad, they mean on the track. There are parts where there's one track to the Long Island Railroad. God forbid a squirrel walks on the track and has a heart attack, everybody's late for work. Why didn't we have the ability to go and face the obstacles and make the change? We know what we have to do with the environment. We know we're poisoning ourselves right now. We know it. We can see it. You see algal blooms in lakes we never had before. You see all sorts of pollution and signs of pollution we've never seen before. You see the fisheries that are being degraded every day. Why aren't we doing something about it? It's us. It's not that we don't know the answer. It's that we together as government have to be more aggressive and more bold and actually get these things done. And today is an example of that in a small way. Let's build artificial reefs. All the other states have done it. It's a no-brainer. It works. It's better for the habitat. It's better for recreation. It's better for the economy. Let's do it. Well, it's complicated. By the way, everything in life is complicated today. Everything. Getting out of bed is complicated. Having a conversation with your daughter about dating is complicated. Everything is complicated. This is New York. This is the place where we solve problems first and the nation follows from us. Let's get to work. Thank you and God bless you.
Please welcome Adrian Esposito, Executive Director of the Citizens Campaign for the Environment.
Whoa. Talk about a misstep. Thank you. Well, this is exciting. This is exciting because this is a milestone in efforts to enhance and protect our coastal water environment. And as Governor Cuomo knows, we love our coastal water environment, and it plays an essential role in Long Island living and as an economic driver. Tourism, fishing, boating, kayaking, surfing, going to the beach if it ever stops raining on the weekend. All of these things are at the heart of Long Island living. All of these things are what define what we love about Long Island. Many of you are like me. You grow up with a fishing pole in one hand and a crab trap in the other, 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on the land. And you fall in love with the water. And I remember growing up, you'll appreciate this, Governor. I grew up in an Italian household, and Sunday was spaghetti day, except in the summer. In the summer, my mom liked to make spaghetti with crab sauce. So we were told, my brother and I, we were told, go scooping. And that meant we each got a scoop net, we went outside, we walked along the docks, and we had to scoop up the blue claw crabs. We weren't allowed to come home until we had 12 good-sized crabs, because that was dinner. And you had to be quiet when you did it. You had to make sure your shadow didn't interfere with the crab going, when you were looking over the dock, because that would make them run away. And then you had to move slowly and then move quickly and get them. It was an all-afternoon endeavor. But you would bring home dinner. And those are the kind of memories and those are the kind of experiences growing up as children that we want our children to have and to continue to be able to pass down. And that's why restoring our waterways and our marine environment is so precious to us and so near and dear to our hearts. Creating artificial reefs brings back fish populations and helps with the sustainability of our ecosystems. And who fishes, by the way? Well, as it turns out, everybody. Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, the wealthy and the working, men and women, and people from all walks of life. It brings us together. All we know is when we put that bait on the hook and that sinker hits the water, we are smiling. It helps to catch fish too. That really makes us smile. But that experience of fishing also connects us to nature. And that is also part of the value of it. So as we walk along this journey, I have to say we are very grateful to live in a state that has a governor that not only understands the economic value of water, but more importantly, understands the societal value of water. We also are thrilled with all the other marine initiatives and water initiatives. I mean, it's worth saying again, $2.5 billion last year in the state budget, a $300 million environmental protection fund, standing up and saying no to offshore drilling, an ocean action plan, and near and dear to my heart, the Bay Park sewage treatment plant. These are all things that have meaning and substance, and we are delighted to be a part of them and to have a partnership with government that cares about people's quality of life, the water as an economic driver, and as a lasting legacy to leave the next generation. And for Michaela, I grew up in a very strict Italian household. We could talk later if you'd like. But now I'm delighted, and please join me in introducing our next speaker, as Commissioner Sago says, an all-around good guy, but also the president of Rocket Charters. I guess you get out there very quickly. But more importantly, I think the governor's appointee to the Mid-Atlantic Marines Management Council, Captain Tony Delernia. Captain.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to initiate this project. What the governor neglected to mention is that this artificial reef program is the largest either underway or planned program for the East Coast from the states of North Carolina to Maine. Nothing is as large as what's being done. I know that because as New York's representative to the Mid-Atlantic Council, I interact with my member states, North Carolina to New York, but I'm also the liaison from Florida up to Maine, and this is beyond the scope of anything else that's happened in any other state. We as fishermen, recreational fishermen, have been asking for something like this for almost 20 years. And it was only until after the Cuomo administration got to Albany and listened and said, you know, what the Cuomo administration does well, which is to listen to constituents and say, let's make things happen. And so what the governor did was he called the commissioner over at DEC and said, let's make this happen. He didn't say, can we make it happen? He said, it's going to happen. And the one thing about the DEC also, currently the folks we have at DEC is probably the most responsive. I've been working with the agency since the 1980s. And the current leadership and the folks over at the agency, especially in the marine resources, is the most responsive group of folks that I've ever worked with. And so I really appreciate that. Commissioner, your leadership has made that happen. Fishermen go through an evolution in their development. When someone first starts to fish, the only thing they want to do is to catch a fish. Let me catch a fish. I just want to catch one. Let me catch one. Then after a while, I want to catch two. I want to catch three. After a while, you go into stage two. Stage two is, I want to catch a lot of fish. I know how to catch a fish, but now I want to catch a lot of fish. After you've gone through stage two, you go to stage three, which is, I want to catch a big fish. I've caught fish, and I've caught lots of fish, but now I have to catch a really big fish. I want to catch a big fish. And eventually, after you've caught a few big fish, you go into stage four, which is the final stage, the most mature stage. And that's the stage where you want to teach other people how to fish. You want to help people catching fish. And that's what this project does. And that's the governor's leadership. He's into stage four at this point. By building this reef, he's into stage four. He's helping people catch fish. He's teaching them how to fish. He's bringing them along with a hobby that he's enjoyed his entire life. And so, again, I really appreciate that, and the fact that we've been asking for this for so long is very gratifying. I do have some prepared comments. Those are just some of the things I was thinking about on my way out, but I did prepare some comments that I'd like to make also. And again, I'm very thrilled to be here for the Governor's Reef program. As has been said before, the ocean is the lifeblood of Long Island, and this project just shows how Governor Cuomo and our political leaders are serious about protecting and improving our environment. As a fisherman, I know firsthand how important the ocean is to Long Island. It is the pillar of our entire economy. Whether it's commercial fishing or recreational fishing, jobs depend on it. That means more jobs, more tourism dollars, and a stronger, cleaner environment. I also want to applaud the governor for standing up to the federal government's offshore drilling plan. This plan represents a real danger to our communities and to the fishing industry. A spill could be catastrophic, but Governor Cuomo is making sure it won't happen anywhere near Long Island. Well, let me just add this. I've been privileged, honored by the BP oil spill. The governor mentioned the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico a little earlier today. Each state, as part of the settlement BP made with the federal government, each state got about $100 million towards the restoration of the Gulf of Mexico. And I've been honored and asked to serve on the committee through the University of South Florida. There were 6 of us that review research proposals to award grants to restore the Gulf. That work is going to last 20 years. That spill is going to require 20 years worth of research to restore the Gulf to where it was before the spill. And we're talking about drilling offshore of Long Island. We're talking about putting a straw into the bottom of the ocean and sucking out dead dinosaurs so we can run our cars on them. What we should be doing is running out into the ocean and looking for places where wind farms and commercial fishermen can coexist. We should be looking for places and how we can put a solar panel on the roof of every home on Long Island and use solar energy to power our homes. We shouldn't be talking about possibly contaminating our beaches. And the governor is right. If you look at the tidal currents and the way they work, a spill off the south shore of Long Island can just spread throughout Long Island, up the East River into Long Island Sound. So anyway, I'd like to thank the government for his leadership and for everything he's doing to protect Long Island's natural resources. All right, everyone wants to go on a boat, so let's go out on a boat and go out and watch this firsthand, which it's going to be a thrilling sight. It doesn't happen too often. You're going to be able to see this firsthand. Watch this. Now, you can't fish now. In work that's been done, reefs that have been put down have been colonized in as little as 2 weeks. Recreational fishermen have been able, and some studies have shown recreational fishermen have been able to take fish off of artificial reefs 2 weeks after their initial deployment. So wait a couple of weeks, then you can put a piece on the bottom there and go and fish there. All right, so we're going to be going on 2 boats this morning. You should have been told which boat that you're on. If you're on boat 1, it should be docked at the far end. I can't see the boats from here, but boats should be here. It's at the far end of Oakland Dock, which is immediately in front of the restaurant. If you're on boat 2, it's docked at the far end of Sunday's restaurant, which is just 1 dock over to the left when you walk out. So boat 1 is straight out, boat 2 is just to the left and out. And again, Governor, thank you very much for all you've done for us. Let's go to sea.